Hello again, and welcome to the Contra Costa College Speech and Debate Team Spring 2020 Showcase. Tonight, you're going to see our open level competitors. And when I say open, think varsity. Some with only a semester or two of experience under their belts, though. And what they're going to be doing is presenting just a few of the events they planned on taking to the Phi Rho Pi National Championship Tournament, which was originally scheduled for this past April and to be hosted in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's unfortunate for so many reasons and on so many different levels that we couldn't attend, and the season was cut so short, so suddenly. However, our students did end on a high note by placing second as a team in our division at the Northern California Forensics Association Regional Championship Tournament, bringing home several top 3 finishes across several events, competing against 14 other colleges and 4-year universities. As usual, our Comet team came through. And for tonight, they've done it again to come together and give it their all for this virtual showcase. I'd also like to point out that our team is continuing what is now a 5-year trend in earning acceptance into each of the UCs to which they applied, including UCLA, UC Berkeley, and Davis, some with full scholarships. And I'm not saying it's because of the team, but that's one heck of a 5-year-long coincidence. And honestly, although some of them won't be competing with us anymore, and in some cases may even be competing against us, Cal, Davis, and Arizona State University are getting some of the best and brightest students they could ask for. And I speak for the entire department when I say thank you for all of your hard work, thank you for being there for one another, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey. And also, if you're out there watching and are at all interested in finding out more about what it is that we do, please contact me, Randy Carver, at jcarver@contracosta.edu. Follow us, then message us on Instagram at Comet Speech Team, or just leave a comment below. And just like last night, I'm going to turn it over to the team, our students, since this is done by them for you, our fellow Comets. So hopefully you can take a little bit of time to sit back and relax.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well during this lovely shelter in place. Thank you for tuning in to day 2 of our first ever remote speech night. My name is Eric Martinez.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin, and tonight we will showcase our national competitor speeches, including 2 persuasives, 2 dramatic interpretations, and 1 informative.
First up, we have Keilanu Ranganath presenting his persuasive speech. For those unfamiliar with what a persuasive is, it is an original speech designed to inspire, reinforce, change the beliefs, attitudes, values, or actions of an audience.
17-year-old Victor is a model youth. He has integrity and serves as a role model to the other kids in his community. These are all positive remarks. So why is it coming from his warden? All of this from an interview with CNN of October 24th, 2019. Unfortunately, Victor is one of the many undocumented youth detained by ICE. What makes his situation unique, though, is that after being convicted for breaking into a car, but before he could be sentenced, he was sent to an unlisted detention center in Oregon for 3 months, before being pressured into voluntarily returning to Mexico. According to the Daily News of August 5th, 2019, recently, ICE has begun a program detaining juveniles that they, quote, they would find irresponsible and potentially dangerous for the agency to leave out of custody. To be clear, ICE and the Department of Homeland Security are detaining kids who they believe pose a national security threat for indeterminate periods of time, completely sidestepping what Supreme Court cases since 1896 have stated are the constitutional rights to a fair trial that not only every citizen, but every person in America, including those who are undocumented, are entitled to. So today, we're going to take a closer look at the situation that these kids are in, the causes that are allowing these same kids to be detained indefinitely, and finally some solutions on the governmental and personal level. In 1997, we signed a contract called the Flores Settlement Agreement, which outlined the treatment of undocumented juveniles. This practice of detaining kids for indiscriminate periods of time should be in direct violation of this agreement, since it's certainly in violation of the spirit of it. In fact, normally, according to the agreement, kids can only be held up to a maximum of 72 hours before they have to be turned over to the border authorities and then to their country of origin. However, that's in stark contrast to the prolonged periods of time that we've been seeing, such as several months or even years. One of the issues with this are the guidelines on who these practices target, or rather the lack thereof. All this information can be found in an operations manual created by ICE. Unfortunately, this is not public record, and my FOIA request is still being processed, so we'll have to look to the Seattle Times of November 12, 2019, who have managed to obtain a copy. It states that those with criminal convictions and pending charges, or those chargeable as criminals, are the main demographics that they target. In some cases, though, they can also detain people based on suspicion of criminal activity, which is as vague as it sounds. In late 2017, according to Rutgers University, a teenager was detained after he posted a picture of his new tattoo to Instagram. Unfortunately for him, his tattoo bore resemblance to a gang-affiliated tattoo, and he was detained on gang-related suspicion of criminal activity. Going past the inherent moral issues with targeting at-risk, undocumented youth, the secrecy of these programs has created further logistical and ethical issues. ICE has provided a family locator map on their website, which can be used to find people who have been detained, but not in this case. Juveniles who have been detained in this fashion are purposefully not added to their online database. Mrs. Ciccarelli told the story of one of her clients who relied on her son to take care of her while she was being treated for cancer. She didn't know what to do, and one day, he didn't come home. She talked to some friends, and then Mrs. Ciccarelli, all of whom advised her the most likely case was that he had been detained. But at the very least, if he had, she could find him using this website. When she went to go look, though, he wasn't on there, leaving her to assume the worst, and unable to go to the authorities because she was undocumented. It was only 3 months later, when she received a phone call from her son, who had been transported to the Abrax Academy prison in rural Pennsylvania, 2 states away, that she finally figured out what had happened to him. Now that we've taken a look at how these policies should directly contradict existing regulations and the way they create ethical and moral issues, let's take a look at how this came to be. This situation has been evolving over time and can be broken into a discrete chain of events: the separation of rights, an exemption to the FSA, and an executive order. Since 2017, by contracting specific privately run prisons, we've been able to legally hold undocumented youth for periods of time previously unheard of. Right now, we're able to do this due to a temporary exemption in the FSA, which was requested by the previous Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. However, what this allowed the DHS to do was to separate the regulations surrounding children who were unaccompanied and those who weren't. One of the regulations set forth in the FSA that they circumvented was the holding of specific juveniles for a maximum of 72 hours. Now, with that being said, countless kids are still being held for up to 72 hours. What this means, though, is that additionally, kids who they suspect of criminal activity can be held for even longer periods of time, with seemingly no end in sight for them. According to an executive order published to whitehouse.gov of June 20th, 2019, which was passed to reaffirm Donald Trump's position on the processing of undocumented immigrants. And to reflect this, in Section 3, Part E of the executive order, it is stated that Attorney General William Barr will file a motion to alter Flores v. Sessions, the previous reinterpretation of the agreement. In doing so, inadvertently, a loophole was created that will allow our government to continue detaining kids without the need for more specific private prison contracts. Now that we have a better understanding of the causes, I'd like to propose 4 solutions. 2 on the governmental level, and 2 you personally can do right now. Countless causes have demanded you call, email, or write a letter to your local representative. But frankly, that might take a long time. For what you can do right now, immediately after this speech, is to use this website I created. Simply fill out your name, and it will automatically send an email to your selected local representative. And if you don't know who that is, that's okay. Enter your zip code or your address, and will automatically select that person for you. Additionally, to get to the root of this issue, and to come to a more concise, long-term solution, I've reached out to Dr. Godoy, the professor and activist at the University of Washington who originally discovered these prisons. Right now, what we need is more information, and Dr. Godoy is trying to get that. She's currently in a FOIA litigation with ICE. Essentially, her request has been reviewed by ICE, and trying to block it based on what Dr. Godoy states are improbable claims. Any way that her efforts can be aided is a small step toward finding a permanent solution. As I've stated previously, this is a constantly evolving situation, and as each piece of the puzzle is placed, another is withheld. As a consequence of this, I've decided to update my website with a live feed that will keep you updated to any new developments, including ways that you can help Dr. Godoy. Additionally, I realize this is Most likely, I realize that as a judge, as a listener, and as a coach, your time is limited to follow up on the solutions that I've shared. As a competitor, we care about our topics. We put time and effort into learning about the stories that we share. We tell them not just because we feel like it, but because it's our way of spreading a message we believe is important. So I've further extended my website to allow anyone to upload information about their speech and create a feed that others can subscribe to stay updated. If you're interested in joining the beta group, please see me after the round. I want to see a change in this situation. Since the last time I gave this speech, there have not been many recent developments in its news coverage. Not because it isn't important, but because it's been overshadowed by other recent events, like the coronavirus. I've outlined a few solutions, but ultimately the most effective thing to do is to share what's going on. And I've made this easy. On the same website that I'm showing you is a share button that allows you to share your site to local social media and even to a Canvas shell. I'm here to meet you halfway. We all lead busy lives, especially with school and work. And if all you have time for is to press a button and share it to your Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, I've created the option for you. If you found the degrading and unconstitutional ways we've been treating these kids to be despicable, as I do, and you want to do something more, then fill out my website and subscribe for updates, and I will meet you there. I'll provide a more impactful way for you to contribute. I know we all feel strongly about our topics, which is why I've created this service for you to be able to easily provide you the same options. For me, it was hearing about Victor that motivated me to find solutions to the situation. For my teammate, it was hearing about Marie Gallegos and how her husband's head was shipped to another country. For you, it was someone else. I provided all the solutions that are within our grasp today for helping Victor, and those like him, and a method for keeping informed on the new things you may be able to do tomorrow. My hope, though, is that I've helped not just Victor, but Mrs. Gallegos, and whoever it may be that motivated you. So we can provide a solution, not just for today, but a meaningful solution for every day after that. Not just for Victor, but for each person, behind each story, and inspire the people in this room.
And now we have our team captain, Shujal, presenting his persuasive speech about a topic that is quite interesting and hard to describe. Let's let Shujal show us what his speech is all about.
I should have read the fine print. Stated Marie Gallegos, whose husband's head was being shipped to a dental school in Israel months after she died of a heart attack in May 2017. Marie was initially informed by the United Tissue Network that her husband, Daniel Gallegos, would be buried at a veteran's gravesite, but she did not realize that his head was being shipped out of the country for medical research. It was not only Daniel Gallegos' head that was being carried out, but 10 other individuals, with United Tissue Network listing the items as electronics, valued at $10 each. And these items were being used for global research by the American government in coalition with Israel without their consent. PBS.org of September 6, 2019 reports that experts and advocates claim that this is a global crisis where the United States takes the forefront for medical research, because it is one of the few countries where the body broker industry is still underregulated. We have seen an increased demand globally now more than ever in the 21st century for body parts. This July, a Hong Kong flag cargo ship departed Charlestown, South Carolina, carrying thousands of containers for a shipment bound to Europe, which contained over 6,000 pounds of human remains, valued at over $67,000. That's approximately $10 a pound. But still, there's very little media coverage, and the brokering of these human remains, along with the legal transportation of these specimens, is still underregulated. Thus, it is crucial that we analyze the problems, causes, and solutions to what the LA Times July 5, 2019 calls a modern version of the triangle of trade. And with body trading, there comes two main problems: company loopholes and the exploitation of low-income communities. Globally, we have seen an increase in demand for body parts, especially in nations where customs limit selling, as medical research companies and institutions typically require for biomedical and therapeutic research. And with 190 countries having highly regulated sales of these specimens, countries are increasingly turning to the United States due to their limited government regulations. The article continues. The only US government regulations placed on these body broker exports is that it can't be infected with disease. That's it. And with structured regulations not in place, loopholes are still leading to body parts being sent out and sold. Annually, 200,000 pounds of body parts sent out were estimated to have had life-threatening diseases, since border agents pay more attention to goods entering the country than those leaving the country. Furthermore, according to the Straits Times Singapore on November 15, 2019, buying wine over the internet is arguably more tightly controlled, generally at minimum requiring proof of age as compared to purchasing body parts. The article goes on to state, although it is illegal to sell organs used for transplants, it is perfectly legal in most US states to sell body parts as long as they're donated for research or education, especially when we consider that infected specimens are typically being carried out by airport workers. Current restraints on body brokers are simply not enough. The problematic regulatory environment of body brokers doesn't just stop at infections. Brokers are firmly entrenched in the exploitation of low-income communities of color. They're set up in low-income neighborhoods, often near interstate highways and medical schools, to target underrepresented individuals. What they might not truly realize is that their loved one is being dismembered for profit across the globe. Once again, this is only legal in certain circumstances. The specific numbers attached to the economic impacts are hard to gauge, since many of these companies operate within the gray area of legality. Moreover, according to the Reuters of July 5, 2019, of the 34 brokers identified in an investigation, a third of them failed to pay their taxes, according to court filings showing that businesses in the industry cut corners to save money. There are three central causes for corporations being allowed to sell body parts to different countries. The body broker market continues to grow, federal agencies haven't established effective regulations in place, and media coverage is limited. Worldwide, donated bodies do play an essential role in medical education and training, as well as research. According to the New York Times, July 5, 2019, first-year medical school enrollment is projected to increase up to 32% by next year, nearly a 30% increase since 2002. And accordingly, surgeons state that no computer simulation or mannequin can replicate the same tactile and emotional experience of practicing on human body parts. Moreover, according to the Washington Post of June 2, 2019, independent ventures continue to provide financial incentives for donors, such as picking up body parts for free. Therefore, people that are affected typically come from low-income communities. Another reason for the increase in unregulated body brokerage is because government agencies aren't necessarily communicating effectively with each other. For example, according to the LA Times of December 15, 2019, the United States Customs Department, which regulates and facilitates international trade, doesn't necessarily talk to the Transportation Department, which oversees the planning and coordination of long-term federal transportation projects. Essentially, the agency that oversees the import and export of goods is not talking to the same agency that handles the infrastructure for those very same imports and exports. Instead of buying cadavers from universities or other sources, consumers usually purchase it from body brokers, as they offer donor services to pick up the body and transport and cremate the body for free in return for the body donation. Finally, we also have to consider how federal agencies might not feel obligated to establish sustainable regulations, as the people that are impacted typically come from low-income communities. In the long run, this can add to socioeconomic disparity, as many of the cadavers are sold in the black market. So, how can we most effectively fight body trading? When asking ourselves this question, let's take a look at the solutions both on a governmental and a personal level. On a federal level, frankly, there isn't much happening. The US government hasn't taken much action to place regulations on businesses that sell body parts. However, very recently, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey signed into law a bill that requires body brokers like the Biological Resource Center and thousands of others in the state to be licensed and regularly inspected. This new law calls for brokers to follow a set of standards and to hire a medical doctor to supervise company practices. Right now, California must pass Senate Bill 636, which would prohibit payments in the form of kickbacks as compensation or inducement for referring patients, clients, or customers to any certified license program. If this is not happening on a federal level, state regulations can act as a catalyst to enact change on our federal policies. State officials are able to take matters into their hands more smoothly with the hopes to completely eliminate these facilities. But even so, we must be the ones taking charge and pointing them in the right direction. We have to educate families about these false advertised claims that these facilities make. If you're willing to take the next step and have your voice heard outside these walls, please type your name and email on the website that I've listed in this flyer. If you want to be able to contact California Governor Gavin Newsom, please type your name and email on the website bodytrading.org/CCC speech team. An email which follows the script on the website will be sent automatically to the governor to help pass Senate Bill 636. Because we need to take action now. This is an issue that affects our larger community, and your voice is key in pushing our own state government to take action. In this flyer, I've attached a list of different facilities that are accused of body trading and a link to a petition that I've started on change.org. On a personal level, if you suspect of anyone being a victim of body trading, urge them to do their research before going in, or help them make a more informed decision. Take a flyer and pass it on. Drop it off at community centers. Give it to families. The strongest weapon that we possess against these facilities is the word of mouth, and we have to use it to fight these facilities. Regardless of how some may view those who find themselves posed by financial barriers, we must still advocate on their behalf. Let's face it, we need to mandate effective regulations for body brokers. With the increase in demand for body brokers, these companies are firmly entrenched in the exploitation of low-income communities of color. Their clients tend to be unaware of a loved one being dismembered for profit across the globe, which has ramifications not just on a personal level, but also on the global economy. Currently, California needs to pass Senate Bill 636 to prohibit kickbacks that purposely target socioeconomically disadvantaged communities. Please consider taking my flyers and viewing them on the internet. With body broker companies having negative consequences for both our economy and low-income communities, we must stand up to this issue and bring the change that we envision.
That was definitely something. In our best efforts to transition to our next event, it's time for some intro. Up next, we have Taylor Milpolder performing her prose. A prose is an original or selections of prose material of literary merit, which may be drawn from more than one source. The focus of this event is on the development of the narrative and the story. This is basically something out of a book, so let's watch.
To start this story, I guess I need to start at the beginning. It's a little long and a little dark, so bear with me. My dad is disabled. He has a rare form of MS, and my mom gave up work to take care of him. They lived in poverty, just trying to survive. They fought all the time, and there was never a lot of love in my home. Like, from the age of 5, they taught me how to take care of my dad when my mom's not around. Do basic first aid, give him massages when his legs cramped, what pills to give him and when. They figured it's just easier to keep me at home. So books became my life. Stories that would take me away from everything and everyone. And it didn't matter if I was reading them or if I wrote them myself. See, in my 20s, I finally got to go to college, and OMG, culture shock. I stood up for a lot of gay and disabled people in college, and I didn't give a crap what people thought about me. I didn't give a crap what people thought about me. See, around this time on a training course, there was this woman, and she kept flirting with me, and it scared the shit out of me, so I ran off, and she came back to me later, and she was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you weren't out yet." I knew people who knew they were gay from a really young age, so surely I would know as well, right? I mean, sure, I looked at boobs and I thought they were pretty, but come on, doesn't every girl do that? No. The Stonewall rebellions allowed gay and lesbian people to grow strong and become visible. Activist Gigi Raven Wilbur stated, The bisexual community has also grown strong, but in many ways, we are still invisible. In her 2018 study, Sexual Coercion and Alcohol Abuse Among Self-Proclaimed Bisexual Women, Michelle L. Kelly found that 42.1% of the women in the study had been sexually coerced while under the influence by a partner. In this story, we meet Sarah, a young woman coming to terms with her sexuality and struggling with college and an abusive relationship. She uses alcohol as a coping mechanism, but also storytelling. Out of Darkness into Rainbow by Sarah Beth Jamie. My 8-year relationship hit me hard. There was a lot of abuse and forced sex. I couldn't leave him. My parents wouldn't take me back. They said, that is what love is. So I made a bet with myself. January 2012, that I would give it till my birthday in July, and then I'd kill myself. That gave the universe 6 months to prove me wrong, so what changed? I went to a book signing, as silly as that sounds, and I met 2 people there, Mark and Abby. We talked for hours and exchanged phone numbers, and I thought that would be it. But a couple of days later, they text me and asked me to go see a movie, and then to go out to the bars, and then to go shopping, and then just to hang out. We usually did in a graveyard. I would be writing my fan fiction, Abby would be drawing, and Mark would work on his lyrics. Mark always liked how me and Abby would talk with each other. Did I mention Mark is gay? Like, super gay. Like, covered in glitter. Anyway, they had challenged me to write this fan fiction about Captain America and Tony Stark, where Tony struggles with his love for Cap. And one day, just me and Mark in the graveyard, I'm putting everything into this story, because Abby was super into it, and Mark was blabbering on, and to this day, I can't tell you what he was talking about, but I was trying to work out this tricky plot line. Why don't you just come out and say it? Oh, honey. I came out years ago. You should try it. The water is lovely. I'm not gay. Yes, you are. I'm not gay. I'm not fucking gay. I'm not like you. I'm normal. I stormed off and he was laughing his ass off behind me. And I went home and was rereading the chapter. And I read it again and I called up Mark and I was like, hey, you know how I said I wasn't gay? Uh-huh. I may have overstated my straightness. I will never forget the squeals of joy followed by a rousing rendition of Kiss the Girl. I told Mark, I'm not gay, but I'm definitely bi. My birthday comes and I invite a bunch of my best friends from childhood, Mark and Abby, and my boyfriend. And I'm telling some of my best friends that I'm thinking of leaving my boyfriend for Abby. And they don't like that. They don't even like her. A month or so later, I fall real bad at work, twist my ankle, and I call my boyfriend's job. I'm like, hey, can you tell him to come pick me up? I need to go to the hospital. And they tell me, oh, he hasn't been here. Actually, he hasn't been in all week. Which is strange, because I see him leave for work every morning. So I call Abby, and she takes me to the hospital, but after that, things just get funny between me and my boyfriend. He's convinced there's something between us, which I assure you that there isn't anything between me and Abby. So I rent a hotel room, think everything over, and I get super drunk, and my head was just throbbing, and Mark, he was there with me, and then the next morning I get a text from a friend. They say my boyfriend's going crazy, and he's looking for me. He's convinced I've cheated. already have my bags packed when he gets home. He's furious, shouting, and he starts throwing things. And as I go for the door, he raises his hand. If you put your hands on me, call the police. Just like that, I'm free. But I'm not. He keeps stalking me. He tells everyone I knew I was a filthy fag, and I slept with every girl I had ever seen. He even told my parents this. No, I didn't get to come out. He brought me out. That is one moment in every queer person's life that they should have for themselves, and he just tore that away from me. I went to my first Pride, and I hated it. I discovered biphobia in my community. To this day, I can't say I'm bisexual. I just say I'm gay, straight, part of the community. I knew I had grown. In 2016, I went to 2 Prides. One over my birthday weekend, and then Disneyland Paris Pride. It was a 3-day event with over 200 gay people of all walks of the community, and they had me out late dancing the Macarena. And it's a moment that I hope I never forget. I mean, yeah, my parents are still shitty about my sexuality, and I've lost a whole bunch of friends, but I still have Mark. And yeah, I drink too much when I'm stressed, but I'm working on it. And that's what matters. You go at your own pace and nobody else's. I lost friends and family along the way to follow my own rainbow. Thank you.
Next up, we have Aman performing his informative speech, which has earned him a place in the top 2 speeches in every tournament this season. An informative is an original, factual speech by the student on a realist subject to fulfill the general aim to inform the audience.
Matthew Schifrin, a 22-year-old man that loves to play with Legos, has had a fascination and love with them since he was a child. However, since Matthew was blind, for most of his life, he's always needed someone there while playing. Eventually, he recognized the same barrier for other blind Lego enthusiasts and took the initiative of trying to change the way Lego makes its world-famous bricks. And thanks to Matthew and other advocates, Lego has just announced its next step in being more accessible by creating both Braille instructions and audiobooks for blind and partially sighted children to be more independent with their Lego play. According to Gizmodo, a science and technology company, 400 billion Legos have been created since the founding of Lego in 1932. This means every single child in the world could have 58 Lego pieces. According to National Geographic of 2017, kids spend annually 5 billion hours playing with the Legos. With all this time being invested to Legos, is it possible to convert some of those hours into something even more productive and useful? Well, in a word, yes. Lego has taken the lead in equity and access building by creating the first ever set of Braille Legos. Millions of blind or partially sighted children around the world will soon have a toy with a 90-year history completely reimagined with them in mind. This brand new idea combines Legos with the language Braille in order to create a fun and engaging environment for children to learn Braille and tune their fine motor skills. Some might deem hacking off a few studs as a relatively minor tweak to Legos, but the implication that it will ignite will certainly be something that shouldn't be overlooked. So today, we'll go over what exactly are Braille Legos, before exploring its current status and use, and finally, the future of this learning tool, which New York Times of February 10, 2019 calls incredible. To understand what these bricks are, we must first comprehend why is it something important. Cited from the World Health Organization of October 11, 2018, 285 million children around the world are either blind or partially sighted. For them, an important form of comprehension is the language Braille. It's foundational for them to interact and engage in the world they live in. But unfortunately, according to CNN of April 24, 2019, only 5% of blind children learn the language Braille. Braille isn't just some language all blind children should learn. It not only allows them to comprehend material, but to engage the brain in various ways. RoyalBlind.org, a nonprofit organization, helps blind and partially sighted children. The ability to read and write in Braille opens the door to literacy, intellectual freedom, and equal opportunity. It's an extremely important gateway to success for the world's blind and partially sighted, enabling them to be more independent. Additionally, an article published by the Danish Association of the Blind, Braille is particularly useful when we know that Braille users tend to be more independent, intellectually aware, and successful. Clearly, Braille plays a vital role in the lives of many blind individuals, not just on an educational level, but on a practical level. With that being said, these brand new Legos are positioned to bring exactly what is needed. They're a brand new way for learners of all ages, especially children, to have the ability to learn a crucial skill that will benefit them when the time comes. A spokesperson from LEGO told the Norwegian Association of the Blind and Partially Sighted on November 8, 2018. The final set will comprise of 250 bricks, the complete Braille alphabet, numbers 0 to 9, math symbols, as well as the inspiration of teaching and interactive games. In fact, the design is quite simple. Instead of the typical Lego brick with the studs located at the top, the bricks are arranged with certain studs missing to represent different letters, numbers, and symbols. For instance, the letter C has 2 raised studs at the top, while the rest are knocked off. The letter G has 4 raised studs, and once again, the rest are knocked off. The letter P has 2 knock studs in the bottom right column, again, covering the entire Braille alphabet, and much more. While the primary goal is to aid in Braille language acquisition, don't be fooled. Users can still let their imagination run wild as they're snapping them together during independent play. Take the case of Matthew Schifrin. When it came to Legos, he was never truly independent. Somebody was always there, telling him which pieces went where and how to put them together. Not only do these bricks supply independence to the user, but can be used for education. CNN on April 18, 2019 calls this a playful way to learn a crucial skill. Let's say the teacher asks the question, what is 12 times 12? Instead of writing down the answers, they use Legos. They take the Legos that represent 1, 4, and 4, place them on a base, and show the teacher. The same thing can be applied to different subject matters, as certain bricks are laid out, depending on the order, will result in different letters, numbers, and symbols. Think of it like a Rubik's Cube. There's thousands of permutations, each creating a unique sequence of colors. The bricks are exactly the same way, but the only difference being they're much more educationally focused. So now that we understand what these bricks are and its importance, let's take a look into its current status and use. From the aforementioned CNN article, LEGO aims to have these blocks ready to be used and implemented in schools worldwide later this year, which is why they'll be donating to schools and institutions free of charge, giving equal opportunity to blind and partially sighted children. But the best part about these bricks is the impact they'll have on children. By now, we already understand children that learn Braille tend to be more independent, intellectually aware, and successful. But how does this work, and how will these bricks improve upon that? First, one of the main reasons why the institutional learning of Braille has become so scarce is mainly due to how difficult it is to learn the language. Think of it this way. Imagine having to learn a completely new language. Pretty difficult, right? But imagine having to learn a completely new language without being able to see any of the words. Instead, use your fingers. VisionAware.org, a nonprofit organization that helps blind and partially sighted children learn Braille. Since Braille is a sensory language, heavily focused on touch, it greatly increases the learning curve due to how the brain interacts with senses, particularly that of touch. With the implementation of these new Legos, it won't decrease the time it takes children to learn the language, but the experience of learning the language will be exponentially more enjoyable. Plus, they'll be playing and at the same time exposed to the basics of math and English. What makes this even better is how this opens up a path for more blind children to learn Braille at a young age rather than something to learn down the line. The National Federation of the Blind notes on May 8, 2018, mastering Braille is significantly easier to accomplish as a child rather than being an adult, since the brain can easily adapt at a young age. Furthermore, with the implementation of these new Legos, visually impaired children have the ability to connect and interact with other children their age. According to FamilyConnect.org of September 6, 2018, visually impaired children have a difficult time creating relationships due to barriers brought forth by physical conditions. The Legos can serve as a bridge to connect children, rather than keeping a system in place with those with certain disabilities are unable to interact with one another due to physical distinctions. So now that we understand the importance of these bricks, let's take a look at some issues they're facing. By far, the biggest issue these bricks are facing is the advancement in technology. Technology plays an integral role in why many children and adults tend to drift away from the idea of learning Braille. According to ActionFund.org, as technology becomes more and more advanced, there has been a sharp decline in the amount of children and adults that even think about learning the hand language Braille. This plays an extremely important role in children's lives, since as time progresses, more blind and partially sighted children lean towards audiobooks for reading and comprehension, along with GPS for directions. However, even though Braille might seem obsolete due to the advancement in technology, the basic principles that come with mastery of Braille are impossible to forget. According to Project Forever Free, the ability to read and communicate your thoughts is something that should never be hindered. Instead, it should be preserved and promoted. Now, the same argument can be made towards reading in general. Why learn to read when there's audiobooks? If you're blind or not, the ability to articulate your thoughts is impossible to abandon. So today, we look at the not-so-minor tweak Lego made to its world-famous bricks, the reason behind it, why we needed it, and some barriers from widespread adoption. To be honest, in the past years, we haven't given full attention to the problem that many blind or partially sighted children are facing. Lego is at the forefront, trying to create a system in which those with certain disabilities have equal opportunity to be successful. And that is something we all can use to snap together a better and stronger community.
Lastly, we have our final speech by Xavier Johnson. Xavier will be giving his poetry. A poetry is similar to a prose, but the difference is that it is drawn from selections of poetry with a primary focus on the development of language and storytelling. Enough explanations. Let's watch.
When asked the question, are you a criminal? Your answer probably shouldn't be, I might be. Even if the answer is, you might be. When pulled over by the cops, do not press your black ass to the window as a form of identification. These are all bad ideas. The type of bad ideas like, who the hell does that? What were you thinking kind of bad ideas? I don't remember the first time I learned silence. Maybe it was the quiet game. Maybe it always made sense to me that the winners were the ones who kept their mouths shut. That the survivors never wore their skin too loudly. Maybe it was time. Maybe it was decades of tiptoeing around my own skin, praying that the world wouldn't remember how to swallow a black boy whole. Somewhere, a sun. Below, boys brown as rye play the dozens and ball, jump in the air and stay there. Boys become new moons, gone dark on all sides, big bruised blue water to fly. Maybe tide, maybe spit back a father or two, but I won't get started. On July 4th of last year, 17-year-old Elijah Alameen was murdered outside a Circle K simply for trying to give gas. The killer, Michael Adams, said that Elijah's rap music made him feel unsafe, and that those that listen to rap music are a danger to him and his community. According to the CDC, homicide is the leading cause of death among young black people ages 0 through 19. That's right. Simply living is a defiance against these statistics and a tribute to those that have been stolen from us. So through the words of Battle Rap from a Black Boy to a Casket by Black Chocolate, Alternate Heaven for Black Boys by Dan S. Smith, and Bad Ideas by Joseph Capehart, a program. When the world wants us to walk in fear, we refuse to. Oh, history? It is what it is. It knows what it did. Bad dog, bad blood, bad day to be a boy, color of a July well spent, but not here. Not heaven, no, not earth. Here, boys can't recall their white shirt turned to ruby gown. Here, we say our own names when we pray. We go out for sweets and always come back. No need for direction and we're safe everywhere. Point. Wherever you like and call it home, or church, or sweet love. Here, if it grows, it knows its place in history. Yesterday, a poplar told me of old forests heavy with fruit that I'd call uncle. Burst in red pulpa, a harvest of dark wind chimes. And as I fell, it kissed sap into my wounds. Do you know what it's like to be in a place that loves you back? I learned silence every time I was patted on the back for being one of those black people, for not wearing my pants like they were being weighed down by a heavy heart, for not sounding like I came from anywhere else but here. I learned silence when I realized I don't have to say anything. Most of the time, I'm registered as a threat the moment I show up. I learned silence when I realized I'm not going to be anything more than what you've already decided I am. You, my God, my ventriloquist, piece me together with the black boys you've picked apart. There, I drowned. Back before there, I was a dead fish, the river's prince. There, men stood by shore and watched me blue. There, I had a face and then I didn't. I knew how to swim and then I couldn't. There, my mother stood over me and cried, open casket. But I wasn't there. I was here, by my own water, singing a song I learned somewhere south of somewhere worse, but that was when direction mattered. Now everywhere I go, I am the center of everything. I must be the Lord of something. And I heard the way you talk about young black people. You say, how can they be so loud? How can they be so angry? Which to me sounds like, how can they be so brave? How can they sing and dance and love with such dangerous skin hanging from their bones? Hey, yo. I heard you like to collect black boys like trading cards. Well, I'm a rare find. See, I made it past 29 and bullets ain't ate my spine. I must be some type of miracle. All the variables that should have equaled my burial, but I'm still here, live and in stereo. The type that you can't stereotype, I mean. I learned silence like I learned survival. Like I learned camouflage. Like I learned hiding in plain sight. They said a nigga only has his breath for as long as America lets him keep it. Well, I'm killing supremacy with every word that I'm speaking. So while you Uncle Tom's cruise, I'm Jack reaching inside myself to live. That's survival. A black man who rides when they try to kill, that's the Bible. Hey, casket. What you made of? Oak? So? Yo, with all the closed doors and lynching trees in my past, we must be made of the same thing. How else could I survive people trying to fill me with lead, or schools trying to fill me with lead? You know why they call you a coffin? Because people are sick of you. You old Dracula Rose from me looking ass. You old bootleg sarcophagus. What you know about death? You were groomed for it. I grew from it. It ain't the same rock. And even though we end up in the same spot, you were made for dirt. I was raised for dirt. Similar stories, but it ain't the same plot. And the fact standing, yo, I dodged dying. Bullets get backhanded from a ghetto where nothing's good. They try to put a nigga under the hood like Black Klansmen. So when asked the question, are you a criminal? Know that the verdict has already been predetermined. Your dark skin is a pre-existing condition. When pulled over by the cops, keep both hands on the steering wheel. Rehearse the names of black lives turned gravestone. Don't make any sudden movements. These are all bad ideas. You should know better. And yes, I know, this battle gospel sounds hostile. But when you hear another shot go, and you know you've lost another friend in the Roscoe, or you see your homeboy dying with coke in his nostrils, you get tired of losing to losing people. Got to explain to his son that his father's not a deadbeat, but his heart got a deadbeat. And this casket has made so many bastards that all the kids around me care about is being fresh to death, and they don't even understand the irony. That the only suits we wear are the ones we are married in, or the ones we are buried in. And I am more than a cacophony of gunshots. My chest is not a conclave of shell casings. So let this poem be my horcrux, attaching me to life forever. And let the videos and views be my resurrection proof that I had this breath. And when I had this breath, I grabbed this breath. And when all voices die, I'll be the last to rest. Slow it down. When all voices die, I'll be the Lazarus. And when it's over, and I descend into the darkness and the madness, and I become a magnet for these maggots, nah. Through these words, I am immortal. So how the fuck am I gonna lose to a casket?